He's going to talk about AI. He's going to talk about demystifying it for people like me who don't understand what AI is actually and big data and all that. So we are really looking forward to that. So as I mentioned, we have our MNM Nanbargal team here. And we've been supporting our Talaivar Kamal Hassan's Makkal Needhi Maiam through propaganda, through these kind of events where we provide more visibility to the party so that, more people get attracted to what we are. We are a party with a difference. We are not your regular Dravidian parties or the BJP or the Congress national parties. We are different. And we want to showcase that in everything that we do. And that's why we hold these events under the guidance of our General Secretary, C.K. Kumaravel, who has been very, very supportive of us. And of course, our Talaivar, Mr. Kamal Hassan. So without much further ado, I am going to hand over to Mr. C.K. Kumaravel for his opening remarks before we give it to you, Ram.
Sure, thanks.
C.K. sir?
He just needs to be unmuted. Just give me a second.
Okay.
Runusha, I'll just unmute you. Sorry, CK sir, yeah, he's there.
I saw him come in.
Yeah, just unmute.
Yeah. வணக்கம், எல்லாரையும் சந்திக்க இந்த வாய்ப்பு கொடுத்ததுக்கு MNM நண்பர்களுக்கும் கண்ணன் அண்ட் டீமுக்கு முதற்கண் என் வணக்கத்தை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். வார்ம் வெல்கம் டு ராம் ஃபார் ஜாயினிங் அஸ் டுடே அண்ட் demystifying the artificial intelligence and big data. Ideas are the currencies of the 21st century அப்படின்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. அதாவது what kind of ideas we are putting up into the world is really going to be the differentiator. அதாவது 18th centuryல பாத்தீங்கன்னா நம்மளுடைய அந்த இந்த பவர் இருக்கும். யார் அதிக லேண்ட் வச்சிருக்காங்களோ அவங்க ரொம்ப பவர்ஃபுல்லா இருந்தாங்க. 19th centuryல அதை தாண்டி யார் அதிகம் உங்களுக்கு ஃபேக்டரி வச்சிருந்தாங்களோ அவங்க ரொம்ப பவர்ஃபுல்லா இருந்தாங்க. அதுக்கு அடுத்தது 20th centuryல யார் மிலிட்டரி பவர் அதிகமா இருக்காங்களோ அவங்க ரொம்ப பவர்ஃபுல்லா இருந்தாங்க. 21st centuryல யார் ஐடியா வச்சிருக்காங்களோ அவங்க தான் ரொம்ப பவர்ஃபுல். அதனாலதான் ஸ்டீவ் ஜாப்ஸ் மாதிரியோ இல்லைன்னா உங்களுக்கு ஃபேஸ்புக் மாதிரி, மார்க் ஜக்கர்பர்க் மாதிரி, இலான் மஸ்க் மாதிரி, இந்த மாதிரி ஐடியா வச்சிருக்கிறவங்க and the ability to put the idea to action. I think ரெண்டுமே, that is where the rubber meets the road. Lot of people can come out with some brilliant ideas. It is the ability to put the idea to action which is making the entrepreneur special. I'm very happy to have one more entrepreneur, Ram, amidst us. இந்தியால இருந்து நம்ம ரோட்லயே தான் இருக்கிறேன்னு சொன்னாரு. இன்னும் அவரை பாக்குறதுக்கு எனக்கு அங்க இந்தியால வாய்ப்பு கொடுக்கல. இங்க வாய்ப்பு கொடுத்ததுக்கு ரொம்ப நன்றி. நீங்க இந்த மாதிரி பேசுறது எங்களுடைய மக்கள் நீதி மையம் நண்பர்களுக்கு மட்டும் அல்லாம ஜெனரல் பப்ளிக்குக்கே இட் வில் பி a demystifying the idea. அது as Kannan rightly told, MNM is a party with a difference because our leader Kamal Hassan is a person with a difference. எல்லாரும் சினிமா எடுத்திருந்த போது அவர் அதாவது கமர்ஷியல் சினிமா எடுத்திருந்த போது அவர் சினிமாவை ஒரு மீடியம் ஆக்கி அந்த மீடியம் வழியா மக்களுக்கு ஏதாவது நல்லது செய்ய முடியுமா அந்த மாதிரி படம் எடுத்தாரு. அவரோட படம் பார்த்தாவே உங்களுக்கு புரியும். அது மகாநதியா இருக்கலாம், அது இந்தியனா இருக்கலாம், அன்பே சிவமா இருக்கலாம். எந்த ஒரு படத்தை பாத்தீங்கன்னாலும் அந்த படத்துல அண்டர்லையிங் தீமா ஒரு சமுதாயத்தை, ஹே ராம், உங்களை சமுதாயத்தை நம்ம அடுத்த லெவலுக்கு எடுத்துன்னு போக முடியும்ன்ற அந்த ஒரு ஏக்கமும் அந்த தாக்கமும் கண்டினியூஸா இருக்கும். நாங்கெல்லாம் சினிமா கமல்ஹாசனம் நம்ம பார்த்து வரல. அந்த கமல் சார்கிட்ட இருந்த நம்மவர்கிட்ட இருந்த நான் அதாவது ஒரு சமுதாயத்தை அடுத்த லெவலுக்கு எடுத்துட்டு போகணும் அப்படின்ற ஒரு தாக்கத்தோட இப்ப அரசியலுக்கு வந்திருக்கிறோம். அதனாலதான் எல்லாரும் ரசிகர் மன்றம் நடத்தும் போது அவர் நற்பணி இயக்கம் நடத்தினாரு. அவர் எந்த விஷயத்தை எடுத்தாலும் அந்த விஷயத்துல அந்த ஒரு வித்தியாசமாவும் இருக்கணும், அதே டைம் மக்களுக்கு யூஸ்ஃபுல்லா இருக்கணும் அப்படின்ற ரெண்டு நோக்கத்தோட தான் அவர் எல்லா விஷயத்தையும் அவர் வாழ்க்கையில முன்னெடுத்து வச்சிருக்கிறாரு. சோ இஸ் பொலிட்டிக்கல் அவதார் டுடே. அந்த மாதிரியான விஷயத்துக்கு அவரோட கைகோர்த்து நடக்கிறது எங்களுக்கெல்லாம் ஒரு பெருமையும் ஒரு மிகப்பெரிய ஒரு சந்தோஷத்தையும் கொடுக்குது அப்படின்னு சொல்லலாம். அதாவது தி குட் பீப்புள் ஷுட் பிகம் கிரேட் பீப்புள். நிறைய நம்மளை சுத்தி நம்ம எல்லாம் குட் பீப்புள் இருக்கிறோம். அந்த குட் பீப்புள் என்னன்னா அவங்க வீட்டை பாத்துக்குவாங்க, அவங்களுடைய அவங்களுடைய குடும்பத்தை பாத்துக்குவாங்க, அவங்கள பசங்களுக்கு நல்ல லைஃப் ஸ்டைல் கொடுப்பாங்க, அப்புறம் டாக்ஸ் கட்டுவாங்க, அப்புறம் நியாயமா பிசினஸ் பண்ணுவாங்க. இதுதான் குட் பீப்புளோட வேலை. ஆனா இந்த குட் பீப்புள் அதற்கு அப்புறம் கிரேட் பீப்புள் ஆகணும். அதுதான் முக்கியமான டிரான்சிஷன். நம்ம பண்ண வேண்டிய கட்டத்துல இருக்கிறோம். அந்த கிரேட் பீப்புள்னா அவங்க வந்து சமுதாயத்துக்கு அவங்க என்ன செய்ய போறாங்க, அதாவது ஒரு ஒரு போர்ஷன். I'm not asking them to completely dedicate their life for the society. I'm saying a portion of their life and portion of their earning for the betterment of the society. Each good people have to do that, and that is a responsibility and a mandate. It is not the violence of the bad people which destroy the society. It is the silence of the good people. So my request to all the good people is, please join in building the nation. That is also our duty. அது வந்து உங்களால எவ்வளவு முடியுமோ, எவ்வளவு டைம் இருக்கோ, எவ்வளவு பணம் இருக்கோ, அதை வந்து நீங்க ஸ்பெண்ட் பண்ணி நியாயமான விதத்துல நம்ம நேர்மையா நம்ம நேஷன் பில்டிங்க்கு நம்ம ஹெல்ப் பண்ணுவோம். அந்த முயற்சியில தான் வந்து கமல் சார் ஈடுபட்டு இருக்கிறாரு. அதற்காக தான் நம்ம எல்லாம் கூட இருக்கிறோம். ஊர் கூடி தேர் இழுத்தால் நாளை நமதே. இன்னைக்கு ப்ரோக்ராம் வந்து இந்த நண்பர்கள், MNM நண்பர்கள் வந்து மிக சிறப்பா வந்து பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கிறாங்க. அதாவது வந்து நிறைய பேர் ஏதோ அதே மாதிரிதான், இந்த வித்தியாசம் தான் இங்கேயும் வந்து அந்த அந்த தாக்கம் தான். எல்லாரும் வந்து ரெகுலர் ப்ரோக்ராம் பண்ணிருந்த போது அந்த மாதிரி இல்லாம நம்ம ப்ரோக்ராம் பண்ணும் போதே அதனால மக்களுக்கு ஏதாவது நல்லது நடக்குமா, அவங்களுடைய வாழ்க்கை தரமும் முன்னேறுமா, அவங்களுடைய மைண்டையும் நம்ம பெட்டரா ஆக்க முடியுமா, அவங்களுக்கு ஏதாவது புது இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் கொடுக்க முடியுமா, அந்த மாதிரியான ஒரு நோக்கத்துலதான் கண்ணனோட டீமும் நிறைய வந்து நல்ல விஷயமும் அவங்க வந்து தரையிலிருந்தும் செய்யறாங்க. ஆனால் இந்த மாதிரி விஷயமும் செய்யறாங்க. ரெண்டு செய்யும் போது ஒரு மிகப்பெரிய இம்பாக்ட் உண்டு பண்ணும். We at Chennai, India are extremely thankful and privileged to have you as our partner, taking care of the Europe, MNM in UK. Thank you so much and best wishes. ஊர் கூடி தேர் இழுத்தால் நாளை நமதே.
ரொம்ப தேங்க்ஸ் சார். நீங்கள் நல்லா எடுத்து சொன்னேன். உங்களோட இது ஃபோக்கஸ் ஆஃப் த பார்ட்டி அண்ட் த MNM நண்பர்கள் எனக்கே ஆச்சரியமா இருக்கு. இங்கே உட்காந்துருக்கிறது இவ்வளோ பேர் அயர்லாண்ட்லேருந்து, ஆஸ்திரேலியாவிலேருந்து, சிங்கப்பூர்லேருந்து, யூஎஸ்லேருந்து, லண்டன்லேருந்து, எனக்கு இந்த மாதிரி வேர்ல்டு ஓவர் இந்த இதில் இவ்வளோ பேஷன் இருக்குங்கிறது நிஜமாவே ஐ ஃபீல் ப்ரவுட் that you invited me today. And அதே ரோட்ல தான் இருக்கேன். கமல் சார் இருக்கிற இடத்துல தான் ஆஃபீஸ் இருக்கு. ஐ கோ பாஸ்ட் ஹிஸ் ஆஃபீஸ் எவ்ரி டே. ஸோ எப்பயாவது மீட் பண்ணுவோம். அண்ட் கண்ணனும் MNM ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ் இதில் எங்களுக்கும் CSR இனிஷியேட்டிவ் வித் ஃபோக்கஸ் ஆன் எஜுகேஷன் ஒன்று பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம் ஃபார் கார்பரேஷன் ஸ்கூல்ஸ். அதில் வந்து கண்ணன் ரிக்வெஸ்ட் பண்ணாரு, இந்த மாதிரி MNM சார்பில் ஒரு 10 ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ்க்கு வந்து ஏதாவது ஒரு ஓரியன்டேஷன் அந்த மாதிரி ஏதாவது கொடுக்கறதுக்கு. ஸோ அதுக்கும் நான் I've given extended my support to Kannan, and of course இந்த கொரோனாலாம் முடிஞ்ச உடனே, but whenever that is feasible, whatever within our capacity we will do, sir. Thank you for this opportunity. So
thank you so much. அது ரொம்ப நல்ல விஷயம் நீங்க பண்றது. அதாவது வந்து ஒரு ரூரல் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸுக்கு வந்து அந்த வயசுல வந்து அந்த நீங்க கொடுக்குற எக்ஸ்போஷர் அவங்க வாழ்க்கையில வந்து மிகப்பெரிய மேல போறதுக்கான ஒரு ஊந்துதலா இருக்கும். அது வந்து இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு வாழ்க்கையில அச்சீவ் பண்ண ஆண்டர்பிரனர் அவங்க கை கொடுத்து தூக்கி விடுறது வந்து ரொம்ப நல்ல விஷயம். தேங்க்யூ சோ மச். கூடிய விரைவில் நானும் உங்களை சந்திக்கிறேன். கமல் சாரியும் உங்களை சந்திக்கிறதுக்கு ஏற்பாடு பண்றேன். உங்களால முடிஞ்ச சப்போர்ட் அதாவது சமுதாயத்துக்கு பண்ணுங்க. இந்த ப்ராசஸ் நாங்க வந்து பண்றதுக்கு வந்து ஜஸ்டா இருந்தோம்னா எங்களுக்கு பண்ணுங்க. அந்த மாதிரி தான் நான் வந்து எல்லாருடையும் கேட்போம். நன்றி. Your time, all your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, CKK sir, and thank you, Ram. So now the floor is yours. Please.
Okay. So if you can't hear me at any time or you have any question, I think I'll be maybe. So I thought I'll compartmentalize my talk into 3. So one is a quick introduction about my journey, my background, and then I'll dive into the world of AI, various use cases, where big data fits in, and the general skills that people need for all this and all. So இதுதான் நான் இது பண்ணியிருக்கேன். So it's not something I do very often, talking about AI and big data in a public forum, because I have experts on my team who are working with the algorithms day in, day out. But basic level, AI 101 level, I'll try and convey this. So first, about myself, I'm born and brought up in Namma, Chennai. Family roots from Thanjavur district. That's where my father is from. But I was born here. Spent a little bit of my early part of childhood in London, actually, in Surrey, Croydon or இடத்துல primary school because my father was based there for some time. Then I came back to India in Chennai. I did my schooling here, and then I went for my engineering to BITS Pilani. And then after finishing my engineering, at the time 91 எல்லாரும் ஸ்டாண்டர்ட் இது வந்து US போறது அப்போ அதான் ட்ரெண்ட். So I went with the flow and went to University of Massachusetts at Amherst, and I did my masters in operations research and engineering. So அங்கே தான் my passion with technology and data started there. Actually AI எல்லாமே அப்பவே ஒரு ஃபார்ம்ல இருந்தது. It was not like but of course today it's more prevalent. But then I was working in Boston for some time, but then I got this itch to start something on my own very early in my life. When I was 26, I decided I should start my own company, and I came back to Chennai and started Indium 20 years back now. So you can guess my age there. So then initial years were very tough. I started up on the Y2K mudinju and the .com crash. So I've seen now 3 recessions, 2001 to 2008-9. And now, of course, the corona. So I've seen the highs and lows of the tech industry. But actually, now it's not as much as a low for tech. People are investing more in technology. So in initial years in India, bootstrap money, funding raise money, went through the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. Went through all the typical journey that most entrepreneurs go through: self-doubt, meeting the objectives that we set out, all that. And slowly 2004 we decided US will be our main focus and remains today our largest market. I spend 1/3 of my time in the US, with a lot of travel there. So 2004 we scaled up and we grew organically. So the initial focus we did was on software QA and gaming. We had some interest in gaming, though I'm not personally gaming, I'm not a gamer, but we saw some business interest there. So we set up a software QA and gaming practice, a gaming practice out of Bangalore. So we work with a lot of large game houses and producers, supporting them, and QA was our journey till 2013. Then one opportunity came knocking, and actually it was a kind of Oracle. We were doing a project and they were sunsetting that engagement with us. So on the team, I carved out and we started under a separate banner called Nova Data, or AI big data company I started. So that was my first foray into the AI big data formally, though I was passionate about it. Then we found that to work with large companies, we work with a lot of big companies, Uber, IKEA. We have several large customers that we work with, and we had, for in the interest of getting scale, we brought it all under the banner of Indium. So today, I think Indium is we are about 1,100 people company with Chennai and Bangalore as our main hubs. We have offices in the US and in Singapore. Singapore was more recent. We just wanted to, and we have some customer base in London and in Finland. So this is about the company, and it's been a good few years, and despite the corona crisis, actually we're doing pretty okay. We still managed, I think, a lot of clients. Actually, AI and big data are actually now our fastest growing practice. People are investing more in that. So coming to the subject of AI and big data, I think it has strongly come of age. I strongly believe AI has come of age. Earlier, it was more a promise and a hype, as many that was the general impression. But I think AI has definitely come of age, and so I'll first spend some time on AI, and then I'll come to big data, because both are closely interlinked. So fundamentally there is more to AI than driverless cars, our Indian like robots, or the Jarvis system in Avengers that many of you might be familiar with. I think there is definitely more to AI. So adallam is what the movies and the public at large are familiar with. But there are far more simple, powerful use cases being put to use every day in AI. So let me first explain what is AI. I mean, I know there is a few AI experts on the call. So I mean, if there's anything you want to add, that's fine. But I think AI is nothing but making machines think. That is our fundamental belief. And just like humans they learn to become intelligent. We are obviously born with some intelligence, but we obviously have to learn to become intelligent. So basically, machine learning algorithms help make machines intelligent, thereby delivering on AI. And this will help make the machines capable of performing human tasks, and in some cases go beyond humanly, which are not possible humanly. Even those tasks can be done thanks to the power of AI, given that we have to process through terabytes and petabytes of data. So fundamentally, AI really relies on machine learning and deep learning algorithms. Deep learning is a phrase used by some of the AI experts when they're using more deeper ML algorithms like neural networks and all of that. They call it deep learning algorithms. But machine learning in terms of types of machine learning algorithms. Now these in turn fundamentally, but data is the new oil, and that's all out there. But I think fundamentally, all this machine learning, for it to deliver AI, it all depends on data. You need large amounts of data for the system to accurately learn. So with very little data, the system can't learn. So Elon Musk report Tesla driverless car. I'm sure many of you have in the US, especially have. It's obviously using humongous amount of data that is already available and processing it to make human-like decisions. So data is the fundamental, I would say, raw material or ingredient for machine learning and AI to be successful. The higher the quantity and the quality of the data, the better the ML algorithms work. If your quantity is not there, then your ML algorithms won't be accurate. If your quality is not there, then obviously you're going to your AI cannot deliver on that. So this is generally the basis of AI and machine learning, and you'll see these interchangeably used. When I started Modala AI and machine learning, and these are all fundamental questions that we used to ask, but these actually go pretty much hand in hand, and that's why you'll see even for job postings, you'll see AI and machine learning, typically covered in the same job description. So let me give you some real life examples that we have experienced, some that you might be familiar with. For example, we have there's a Craigslist. I'm sure many of you are familiar with. I don't know, the US Craigslist, all of you are familiar with, right? So obviously there are Yellow Pages listings which had company, categories, cities, and we had about 10 years of data of typical buying patterns of these vendors who are paying subscription. So we actually had to use all this to actually predict who are the vendors who are likely to renew their subscription. So these help the machine, the sales team in turn saying, hey, this is the person that is likely to subscribe. This is the person that is likely to not subscribe. So you might want to spend some sales effort to try and convert that fellow so that it helps you in increasing your sales. So this is from a business perspective. Then we have done some work with what is a book company in the US? Suddenly I'm drawing a blank. So they have a big focus on education in the US, and they have a social cause where they're trying to work with children who are, let's say, in our example, let's say corporation children are being sent to universities. The AI algorithms are actually predicting what are the chances of that person dropping out based on past patterns. So based on that, you can automatically intervene, provide counseling. So that's another example of how machine learning is helping. Now, one of the areas we are focusing on is in the area of text analytics. So for example, we are teaching the computer to actually recognize information on a document, to extract that document. So let's say there is an invoice that comes. We are actually using computational neural networks, ML and DL algorithms. We have actually made it a product itself now, and it's been recognized by Forbes also recently, and it's called text.ai. So this basically helps in reading documents and actually extracting peripheral data outside of tables, and because there is so much amount of text data which we call unstructured data, images. There's tons of information that it contains, but humanly particular is impossible. So let's say, for example, a stock market analyst he has to go through 20 pages of an annual report. And let's say he wants to analyze 100 companies, that is 2,000 pages. So what if you had an AI engine that actually goes through this and gives him a summary? That saves him a tremendous amount of time. He can just focus on his. So that's exactly what we are doing in text analytics. So, for example, we are talking to a UK-based retailer. I'm not in a position to name them, where they are getting customer reviews from Twitter, Instagram, people who actually buy their product to go and post on their website. So there are like millions of feedback and the reviews coming in from customers. Now, it is humanly impossible, even if you have a large army of a BPO center in India or Philippines, wherever. They have to go through every message to really find out if there is any useful feedback or useful. So that's where an AI engine can actually run through these reviews, cull the text out, and summarize that using natural language NLP, natural NLG, natural language generation, and give a summary. So that's what we are doing in the text world. That's an area that we specialize in, and that's something that we are seeing. Similarly, you take in the image and video analytics space, again, there is use of AI. But in Tamil movies and all of that, if cigarette smoking around, immediately there is a message that comes at the bottom. Someone sees an alcohol, drinking alcohol, or a message is actually now AI can do that. You don't need a human to actually go through the movie and insert that. Because let's say you have an inventory of thousands of movies that you want to stream. It's difficult for someone to go through every movie and go see where someone's smoking a cigarette or someone's drinking alcohol and put that message. So now we actually use AI to actually, so there's different algorithms. I don't want to get into the algorithms in too much detail, but அதுக்கு தனியா இருக்கு. So அது வந்து where we use different AI algorithms which will அது வரைச்சே exactly it will put that message. So we can automate that task as well. So these are some very simple use cases of AI that we are seeing increasingly being used. இதே மாதிரி e-commerce for vision, computer vision, they're using a lot of AI in that, where they're tracking gray market products which look similar but identifying it as a fake. So they feed a lot of images of real accurate, and then we need a few fake ones. Automatically the engine will the machine learning algorithm will learn that and then predict when there is a fake. So in the moment, there is every week we are learning as we go along, to be honest. We are coming out with new use cases that we're seeing. And another example is in agriculture, which we thought was probably will be among the last places for AI. We are seeing now AI and robotic lens being used to track, predict when the vegetable or the fruit will it blossom or grow, predicting the health of the produce. So I think there's a lot of innovation happening there. And in fact, last week there was somebody from the shipping industry who reached out wanting to use AI to help in doing something in there. So every passing week we're seeing increasing use, and I think it's no more a promise or a hype, and I think it's already there to stay, and that's something that we are already living through. We are benefiting from as a business. We're adding people, we're hiring. We have our own training center that we have set up, where in addition to what that being taught in colleges, we have our own training that we're doing. So definitely we are seeing the benefit of that. Now, in terms of skills, generally, Kannan, you wanted me to touch a little bit upon this, but I'm not sure how relevant. But generally, what helps in strong for doing good AI is strong math background, statistics, and some good coding skills, and some DB and SQL skills will come in handy. Technology-wise, every week there is some new technology coming. Python and R are more mainstay languages, but Amazon, Google, everybody's trying to democratize AI by making it easier. You don't have to be a math whiz or an expert to implement AI. They're trying to make it more easy in the hands of basic tech skills can actually use AI. So Alteryx, SAS, IBM Watson, there are so many licensed products, but open source team, there's a lot of movement there in that direction. And I can't, this list is very exhaustive of what technologies are out there. So I won't hazard a guess in which is the best one, but I think there are many out there. So let me just move on in the interest of time so that there is more time for question and interaction. So in big data now, everybody gets confused. What is so actually big data is nothing but extremely large data that can be analyzed to derive trends, patterns is what we call big data. So I'm sure many of you are on LinkedIn, many of you are Facebook users. So you will see friend requests being pushed and saying, or saying that this person could be your friend. That was all that is being done by AI. If you go to Amazon, it looks at your buying patterns and then it will recommend products. So those are called recommendation engines that e-commerce sites use. All that runs on big data, and AI runs on top of that large data sets that can then provide these recommendations. So similarly, in the real estate space, now there's a lot of use of big data because there's a lot of data that's out there in real estate, and especially in the US, India, like are slowly emerging. So generally, big data is that. Now, traditional databases. Now, why big data became a big hot thing is traditional databases could not handle the volume, variety, and velocity of that data. And now you throw in one curveball or googly in our cricket world of unstructured data. Our traditional SQL Server, Oracle, all of them, which are very, very strong databases, and we, of course, continue to work on that, were not able to handle this volume and variety. That's where big data technologies to handle this data came into play. Hadoop, Spark, MongoDB, these are names that are now commonplace. And all of these, and thanks to now cloud and compute power being much more easier to access, and commoditized hardware like the can run it. So the cost of implementing AI has also come down, which is what has made easier today to become more prevalent. Not when I went to UMass Amherst in '95 to do OR itself, that time itself, there were predictive algorithms available back then. So it is not something that has just emerged in the last 10 years. But technology has also made it easier to be able to implement these on a large data sets. You can spin off many nodes on the cloud, Hadoop, Spark, MongoDB. I mean, again, that whole world, there are so many technologies out there. If people are already familiar with Amazon, Azure, Google, it's a rapidly changing world at the moment. But there are a lot of benefits that we are seeing. For example, there's a mobile engagement company that sends SMSs and works with very large Indian banks. And for them to even process end of day reports used to take them some 10, 11 hours. Mozilla was running on Postgres or regular SQL databases. By implementing a big data, I think we actually were able to bring it down to 3 hours. So these are, or 2 hours in fact. So now you can get end of day reports for them. This is, let's say you're talking with one of the largest, let's say SBI is running SMS campaigns in India, or HDFC Bank. You can imagine the number of messages that will go out in a day. So இதெல்லாம் compile பண்ணி end of day ஒரு report கொடுக்கிறதுக்கு it used to take a lot of time. Now, thanks to big data technologies, that's become much easier, and it lends itself well into the AI world as well. So this is kind of a basic introduction to big data. And when I started the company, we thought, okay, Hadoop will take over the world. Then we realized it didn't. And we thought Spark. So every year, some new technology is coming. But one of the things that's common is the basic underlying skills in AI, underlying skills in big data. We need strong DB, Linux skills, system admin skills. All of these what we are talking today will change 5 years from now, but we are seeing quick, we are able to adapt and move on. So this is just to give you Kanan and friends kind of overview on AI and big data. Kanan, and I'd like to pause here and if you can.
This is great. Yeah, thank you, Ram. I know it's a big topic and it's a hard topic, so there is a lot of things to cover, but it was very nicely done, succinct, what we wanted to understand. Now, Badri, my colleague in the UK MNM Nanbargal team, he's going to facilitate the Q&A sessions. Over to you, Badri.
Yes, Badri.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, just unmuting. So I think I have a question from Mr. Mohan Raj from Australia. So he works in the pharmaceutical industry. His question is, how can AI be used in the pharmaceutical industry? That is, other than the production and quality control or testing, can it be extrapolated to other areas such as regulatory affairs? For your information, so he's provided the definition of regulatory affairs. He's saying regulatory affairs is responsible for submitting technical documents starting from raw materials to the finished product and obtain marketing approval with the health regulatory authorities. So over to you, Ramsky.
Okay, so firstly, we don't do much on the pharma side, so I'm not an expert on the pharma world, but I think there is a lot. I have friends though in New Jersey who are working in the pharma industry, and I'm hearing from them that there is. So I think fundamentally, Mohan Raj, I think wherever you see a lot of data that's available, I think fundamentally you should have historic data. In India, in fact, the problem in agriculture sector that sometimes when some friends of mine were attempting to do something, data was not available. Data quality was a question, was suspect. So, but I think in the pharma world, it's far more organized. So I think if you have the large volumes of data, I think that's the first ingredient to be able to look at. Okay, what can I use, and then can AI be used in against that, and can algorithms be? Secondly, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to do formulations, or you're trying to use the data to predict certain formulations, or you're looking to generate certain documents from that data? I think the use cases are many, and I think there are definitely ways. Today's technologies will definitely be able to deliver on that. So I think there are too many for me to give a specific thing saying may pharma the panangante. But I think if you have enough data or enough, let's say if it's documents, you need to feed the engine with enough documents for it to learn. And then what is that you're trying to achieve? And I think if you have those two clear, and I think if you're an expert in that domain, if you can answer that, I think AI can definitely be applied, because we are seeing that if you follow these two rule of thumb, anywhere we are seeing applications. In India, some friends are attempting to do something in agriculture. They're having challenges with the data quality and the data consistency. Agriculture, then you might have a dream, but it's still not there yet, because unless you fix this. So that's be my answer.
I think Murali Krishnan wants to chip in with his comments, because I think he's working in the pharma industry as well.
Please, anybody can help me out.
Murali, Kannan, maybe you want to unmute Murali Krishnan.
I think Satish is.
Hi.
Oh, yeah.
I hope you are able to hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, go.
Yeah. So I've been in the pharma industry for around 15 plus years, and I'm also managing a delivery for artificial intelligence and analytics space for one of the service providers based in India. So the use cases, as Ram was mentioning, so the use case is extensive. So right from drug discovery, from the point when the drug is, the formulations are being made, to the point when it's been dispatched from the manufacturing plant to your sales and commercial. You see the end-to-end life cycle in a pharma. It takes, the typical stages are your, drug discovery, clinical trials, and then it goes into manufacturing, and from there on to, dispatching the product to the distributors, and from the distributors probably to the retail shop or to the pharmacy or to the HCPs directly. So in all of these phases, data is extensive. As again Ram mentioned, the data is the engine. Data is oil for the next revolution that's happening in this space in this current situation now. So you have anywhere you can think of all the document search, all the regulated documents that you've got. previously we used to have a system called Documentum, which just was just storing the documents, but you cannot derive any analytics from that. It was plain just take the document. It doesn't do any analytics on it. Now, with the FDA regulations in place, we are able to do the document analysis as well and identify where potentially adverse effect might happen on our product. So let's say a drug paracetamol has been released by GSK, and AstraZeneca also releases a similar product. But there are some adverse effect. You can understand from the previous trend what happened in AstraZeneca. You can predict what's going to happen for the GSK products as well. So wherever you see data, there is extensive usage, the need for AI as well. And it comes to the point till your sales and marketing also. Till the sales and marketing, you can see there's extensive usage of data where the sales rep goes to a field force. There also the AI is the AI is possible. Like you see how the salesman is traveling from one pharmacy to another pharmacy. You want to improve the efficiency of how he travels to one doctor to another doctor. You want to improve that. That's where AI ML also comes into picture. So you could think of anywhere where human intelligence has to happen. Previously, we don't see the data. We just see data as data. But with more intelligence, if you want to see data, that's where this field comes into really handy.
Yeah.
I hope, Senthil, you are fine with this.
Yeah. No, thank you, Murali. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Then over to Lawrence, who's another AI expert, I believe. He's dialed in from Singapore. Over to you, Lawrence, for the question.
Lawrence, you can unmute. Yeah.
Yes, I can hear.
Go ahead.
How are you? I'm from Singapore, and I have some question. Because my company is a social networking site, so it has lots of video, audio, and text data. And about my job, I'm responsible for audio processing, like multilingual speech recognition or language identification or natural language processing, all based on data. So in addition to serve my company's direct end user, my company also provide machine learning service to other small companies. But I usually encounter some issues. For example, business user want to have sentimental analysis or speech recognition service, but they don't want to share their end user data due to the privacy. So I want to know how to deal with this kind of situation.
Oh, that's a tough one. So, see, that's going to be hard to overcome, Lauren. So, we do something very similar. We work with even doctors and legal community in the US, where we are converting voice to text, and the terminologies are different, right? So we are now training our AI engine to actually understand the text and provide insight. So. And the social media, of course, there's a lot of sentiment analytics that one can do. But the only way that you can overcome that is if they can't share the actual data and the recordings, is to at least ask for some kind of synonymous data that you can at least, which is familiar, which is similar, which they can share. And because you need some input for you to be able to train the AI engine, and speech to text is. Basic speech to text is easy. I mean, that is there in our laptops, Cortana, and so many. That's now become prevalent. But to give it contextual learning, you will need that input, Lawrence. And without that, it's going to be hard. So what you could do is ask your client or your company. They can provide synonymous data. So we have done that in some cases where the customer could not share the actual data set, but they gave us something that was like their data, and it was still, maybe some of it could be, masked and in some form, and we from a confidentiality standpoint. But we used that to train the engine, and then when we provided our output, the customers then validated that on the actual data, and then we looked at the accuracy and further, improved the models and all that. But you will need something. It's hard to go from. So you'll have to speak and get if not the exact speech and video, you need to at least get something that's similar to that. We run into that as well.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Ram sir. And I have a question from Balamurugan sir from Chennai. It's kind of a different take on AI. So he's asked, due to artificial intelligence and RPA, and I believe it's robotic process automation, if I'm not wrong, due to these two, do we have impact on employment opportunities? Whether people are possibly losing jobs, and is it going to reduce the number of jobs? Is this question? What is your take on that?
Yeah. So I think definitely I'll be lying if I said there's no impact on jobs. I think there's a lot of companies that we're working with who are looking to, let's say, medical claim processing. We're seeing that as so there are, let's say there are 50 people, they've outsourced that. There's a TPA who's got 50 people just going through. So we're seeing those kinds of customers now looking at AI to try and say, can I do the same thing with 20? Do I really need 50? So definitely, but it doesn't mean, I mean, I think they're looking to see whether that 30 can be put on something else. Similarly, we have a consumer customer who's looking at supply chain data, supply chain paperwork, and looking to see if that can be automated. There are several people looking at that and making entries into their SAP system. And they're looking at to see if they can use a combination of RPA and AI to do that with less number of people and invest in tech. So there is one set of, so AI has some great uses where it can address something that are humanly impossible. But then at the end of the day, you're also teaching it to be like a human. So there is going to be an impact on certain jobs. But where I'm seeing it is generally in terms of where, especially there's a lot of repetitive jobs. So let's say an decisions and can do that in 2 hours instead of 10 hours. That's going to give him 8 hours to do something else. That is my connection okay, Badri?
Yeah, we can.
I suddenly got a message saying it's unstable. So, so I think so there'll be some impact of AI definitely on jobs, but I think it'll create more tech jobs. It'll create more. Some of the more repetitive tasks can probably be moved to some other more high productive work. But yes, there is a slight shift towards that. Even in the BPO segment in India, we're seeing push by clients. We're not engaged in that as much in the BPO space in India, but I have friends in BPO who are getting pressured by clients to automate more tasks and do more with less people. So,
yeah, thank you, sir. Moving on, have another, it's a different theme for the question. So this is coming from Vimal Ganesan. So he wants to know what kind of use cases does AI present for the Tamil Nadu administration. So he cited, do we have any specific uses within, say, traffic control, pollution control, or corruption, anti-corruption kind of things, so what does AI and big data present in this space? And then just maybe kind of not specifically delving into any specifics on party and co, but just in the sense of what kind of benefits it would bring if we have to look at AI from applying it to these different areas. This is kind of question.
No, I think so. That's a tricky one. I'll stay clear of the corruption aspects, but I think there is obviously that there's a big use from the election standpoint. That's now thanks to Prashant Kishore, that's become common. That obviously AI and it can be used for a lot of prediction, and so I think. There are tremendous uses in the government side in terms of in the terms of traffic management, I think there's a lot of data. I think the government that way has done a great job in Tamil Nadu. They have amazing amount of data. Now, we don't work as much with the government, and we're seeing now the Telangana government has using some technologies to make even the lease registering properties and all of that. They're using technology for that. So I think there's several use cases in the e-governance space that the governments are looking at. Still have a long way to go, and I think from a security standpoint, facial recognition is a huge area that has relevance, where you can track and reduce incidents of crime. I think there's a lot of things now with the geo tracking that's possible. You can predict hotspots and look at women's safety. I think there's a lot that now that most of the data, GPS data is available. You have crime data from police records. I think there's a lot that can be used there as well. Again, from a medical standpoint, you have government data. I'm sure I think that has a lot of use cases as well. So I think again, from a government standpoint, there's several that can be done. I'm not sure how much is being done at this stage. Who's championing these? It needs some serious tech. I know some friends of mine who've been involved in launching police apps and things like that. I think the mobile app space is seeing a bit of an increased trend. But I think eventually, once we have enough data from all this, I think the AI revolution should come for governance in states like Tamil Nadu and all of that. I think there's huge potential that can be put to use. But I'll stay away from making any statements on how much government is doing. But I think the use cases are endless, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you, sir. Have another question again from in relation to the healthcare industry. How much, and this is from Sender, who is a physiotherapist in the UK. He wants to know how much AI would impact online healthcare consultations. Any pros and cons, if you can delve on that, please.
Yeah, I think there are. I'm not seeing any cons at this point. I think I'm seeing more. We are actually working with. We're seeing a sudden increased appetite for telehealth applications in the US markets, and obviously, and the best thing is now we have people who can now access. You don't have to go to the US to consult a specialist. You can actually do this sitting from Mylapore. You can do this, and that's the amazing pros of having telehealth systems. Now, I don't think AI is there yet in that world. It's there in healthcare, obviously. There's a lot of medical system. Like I said, AI is being used to convert text to voice recordings to text and use that. And there's a big push in the US government, I've heard. I'm not seen much of that in India yet. But I think on the telehealth side, I think as it emerges more and more data is captured, I think you can come out with more predictive consultations. You'll have past records to predict the chances of this being a disease or this being a form of treatment. I think it'd be amazing opportunities for that. I mean, if AI can help predict which student is likely to fail, I'm sure that AI can be put to use to say, okay, this is the most likely form of treatment that one should pursue, and be able to facilitate that for the doctors, and that will give them more bandwidth to consult and provide support to a larger population. I think it will definitely democratize the healthcare system and make it more accessible in the hands of people. So I think there's definitely a movement coming. I'm not seeing yet much of AI per se, because I think it's still in the tech adoption stage. The AI will follow next when there's more data that's been gathered. I think we're not yet gathered enough data yet, is my personal view.
Thank you, sir. Someone's put up their hand. I just want to give them a chance. So Vijay Raghavan. You want to unmute yourself, Vijay?
I think you need to unmute him, no, Badri or Satish?
Yeah.
Vijay, you're good to go. Vijay Raghavan is calling from Ireland.
Hi, Vijay.
Vijay, you can go now. Okay, we will come back to Vijay. Like question actually. So
yeah, okay, sure. Quickly again, moving on.
Kannan had a question, Badri.
Oh, you had a question. Sorry, Anand. Yeah,
I think
sorry.
Vimal Ganesan had a question. So Vimal, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks, Karan. Hi, Sukumar. There's a real questions. Actually, big data not good for real-time checks. So owing to huge data volume, right? But in AI, we need immediate decisions, everything. So I'm not able to bridge the gap between AI and big data. Could you explain a little bit more?
You're asking about real-time, Vimal?
Yeah, real-time, practically.
So real-time, plugging the real-time gap in AI and big data is a concern. Okay, now there is a latency just for the non-tech folks. There's latency is obviously the gap in flowing information from one system to another, and the data is in disparate sources where it is in many systems, and they all have to be warehoused in one system. But I think again, I'm seeing, and I call this the plumbing behind the scenes. Nobody knows all this. It's all the underlying plumbing. Plumbing the plumbing is improving a lot in the AI and big data world. And we are now working with customers. You might be familiar with Kafka. There is familiar with Stream and CDC, which is change data control, which in the databases, where as soon as you update a database, immediately it's reflected in a target system. All that is seeing tremendous improvements. So I think real time is definitely, for example, if let's say there's a rental car company, Avis or someone, if I've made a booking for a car, there's no way that somebody else can book the same car. It has to be real time. It cannot wait for an end of day or a batch process for it. I think underlying plumbing is improving drastically. We are seeing a lot of retail clients, e-commerce clients, a lot of adoption there. A lot of new tech that Microsoft and Google and some other new startups are starting to provide. I can offline, if we connect, I can give you some tech names that you can look at. And
okay.
But definitely, it was a big concern. It's getting there, and there are some who are not. They're okay with near real time. But let's say you're implementing it in the police force recognition to catch criminals, it has to be real time. So obviously,
definitely.
So I think definitely, real time is getting there, but it's expensive, Vimal. There are open source systems, but if you're a good tech guy, you can do it. But generally for the enterprises, you have their Azure and Google are investing a lot in that space. But it's getting there. I think stock market. A lot of them have started using real-time systems.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think Mr. Subramaniam, he had a question. Yeah, over to you. Can unmute.
Okay, Subramaniam, you can talk now. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks. Mr. Ram, I have two questions basically. Just one is about have you done anything on the warehouse logistics space? Because that's where my competency is coming from. I see that there are a lot of potential thing when it comes to warehouse logistics side. What best we can do, how we can make these machines talk to just move the goods inside the warehouse and also loading onto the trucks and to meet these customer service levels. That's number one. Number two is it's more from the society perspective, that I always used to think that we spend a lot of money in terms of the elections and campaigning, other things. How can we make this election campaign effective to just reach out to this audience, mass audience, in the kind of intelligence way, in a very cost effective way, as well as it's going to be appealing? Can we do something? Do you have some kind of suggestion in terms of can we apply? Thank you.
Okay. So I'll take the first question first. I think on the logistics and warehouse space, there is tremendous applications, Subramaniam. I think I don't even have to go to my customers. I have friends who run this space. Actually, in India itself is getting very, very mature. There are friends who are now looking at logistics space. They are looking at driver data. They can predict whether a driver overslept in a particular, let's say he's going from Tirunelveli to Punjab to, let's say, Batinda, let's say he's just getting it. So they're able to know quickly. You'll have an AI system will alert whether someone is overslept in a particular stop as well. So I think there is amazing uses thanks to IoT and AI. I think IoT has a huge play in warehouse and the logistics space. Similarly, from a routing is another. For example, we did work for a customer in Indonesia, which is a large cab company. So we've actually used AI to predict which are the best routes, which are the highest pickup. Because if you're, let's say you're a hailer cab on the street side hailer cab company, not like the Uber where you pre-book. Let's say you just go to the street. So they want to take routes where they have the highest chance of picking up passengers. Again, there are AI engines that can help you in that optimization. So I think similarly in the logistics space, I think there's a lot from a routing standpoint, also from a material standpoint, because you're carrying perishable goods, some goods that have a longer lifetime. So I think my friends are all using data of that to even plan their logistics, planning. I think there's a lot happening in that space, and there's a lot of mature systems. I can take you offline. I know companies even in Chennai doing that. And that's on the second question. I think there's a huge opportunity, obviously, from a campaign and from a social media perspective to leverage AI. You can now do sentiment analytics. You have that's now a little more proven, technologies out there that can actually look at. There's also listening tools that can listen to social media talk and give you that chatter can be captured into data, and then you can run sentiment analytics. You can then plan your media campaign based on geographical spread. You can see where your biggest areas of strength are, weaknesses are, and I think all that is possible today with AI based engine. And for example, even on the just to give you an example, there are the micro lending space in India. They are looking at where is the micro lending space which has the highest collection, which has the highest state of collection, and they are predicting which markets they should be able to go to where they can grow their micro lending business. They might see that Madurai, or could be in some place near Nagpur, towns, small towns. All that data they're using to even predict which are good microfinance markets. So similarly, in the campaign side, I think there's a lot of data that can be used from SM and other data to be able to predict and plan. And I leave it at that because it's a separate political topic in itself.
Yeah, thanks, Ram. We have Muruga Pandian who wanted to ask a question. So over to you, Muruga Pandian. Are you on mute?
I don't see him at all.
Oh, no, he's there.
Muruga Pandian.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Kekala, Muruga Pandian. We're not able to hear you.
Kekala.
Okay. We can't hear you, Muruga Pandian. You want to come back again? Okay. While we wait for Muruga Pandian to come back, let's go with Vijay from Ireland. He is now able to connect. Vijay, go ahead.
Hi, I hope you can all hear me now.
Yes. Hi, Vijay.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for your time, Sukumar. I'm in Ireland, as Kanan just mentioned. I'm a budding data scientist. So I just recently started a project. I'm a big football fan. So I just started a project where I was trying to use natural language processing and other text analytics tools for like a small PR public relationship mission for like one of the clubs that I support. So you can find the sections of the society or certain parts of the country where the image of the club is not positive or positive enough, where it can not influence as such, but try to make your image better in that way. Being a bigger Talaivar Kamal Hassan fan, I was just wondering if we can translate those natural language processing tools and techniques into social media campaigns where you're not as much trying to influence the public, like not as sinister as what Cambridge Analytica did for your Brexit and the US presidential campaign, but just to gauge the public opinion, the public mode of Talaivar, and how we can make it better for the upcoming election campaign.
Yeah. I think that fundamentally it depends on data, the underlying thing. I mean, I think you're able to, if you have the data from the landscape that you're trying to target, you can say, okay, I'm seeing increased support from this particular section or whatever, geography or town or district, whatever it may be, case may be, or globally, whatever, or demographic that could be. But it all depends on what data is available. Otherwise, you need to scrape the data off social media feeds and listening tools first. Create that data before you run your data science algorithms on it to be able to give you those predictions and insights that you can then focus on. So it all depends on that. So even for your football example, you need to have the data available of the which towns, which areas that you're already seeing some support, and based on that you can target, hey, okay, this particular area is an area that's weak. Maybe we should increase our marketing spend in this particular town, or run some segmented campaigns to increase support. So I think it depends, again, boils down to what kind of data is available. And, but yes, there are many such, examples that are already available publicly that have been mastered. So can you hear me? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Ram, sir. Quickly moving on. Sender had a question. So over to you, Sender. Kanan, you have to unmute.
Yeah, you're unmuted. Sender, go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Kananana, for organizing an amazing kind of events. My question to you, sir, I think first of all, a small comment. I currently live in Croydon in Surrey, so I think I can share the connection. Yeah. So it's Croydon is still the same, sir. So nothing has changed. We got new buildings, but things are relatively the same. The actual question is, I'm much more into health and well-being field, and here with the NHS, they use a lot of I'm sure the artificial intelligence technology in terms of like the online consultations, where they really kind of they've got different algorithm even for emergencies and also through NHS one-on-one. But how much that kind of, again, that there are pros and cons in it. Is there any kind of, do you think this could be potentially possible with the telehealth coming up? Is it possible to implement this in India? What are the difficulties do you foresee, sir?
No. Let me understand your question. So you're asking if telemedicine can be implemented health and well-being in India?
Yes, there's more similarly on the lines, because again, I think it's I'm not expecting that to be completely implemented, but do you see, again, is the artificial intelligence, will it really assist greatly in online consultations? Because personally, when I do a lot of consultations, again, there is a lot of facial kind of expressions and things. Just by listening to the symptoms, it's very hard to kind of do a consultation or make a judgment. So you really need that face-to-face connection. And sometimes we do just online symptom checker, and that really leads to a diagnosis. So with is that I believe is that artificial technology, right?
Definitely. I think it's interesting. I haven't thought of that before, but AI can be put to use here. I'm not sure if anyone's already attempting it, but I think we already have AI tools which can quickly tell whether someone's smiling, frowning. All that is already available. Even In fact, some of our trainees in our company have done sample projects where they've given me demos of that. So I think that's already available. Now, to be able to study better in terms of physical and health conditions through that, I think it's not yet there. I think it's still evolving. But definitely, I think it will get there, because I'm already seeing, you won't believe the number of people who are approaching us from abroad who want to offer, through telemedicine, make healthcare more accessible to people in India who may not be able to have access to the best of doctors and best of, because the number of hospitals to the population is still low compared to other countries. So we're seeing, I think eventually improving that through AI, I think, is a natural progression that will happen, Sindhil. But I'm not sure if AI is at that stage where it can quickly tell what symptoms could be. I don't think it's there yet. I think still it relies on data. So if you, let's say, for all your patients, if you're collecting data, that can be put to use for 50 plus, 40 plus, male, female, you're seeing those patterns can be put to use using AI to give you some aided, augmented AI can be done.
Okay, great, sir. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Over to Murugapandi next.
Hello, sir. Sorry about that. So, as Kannan had said, I have my own company and we are primarily into cloud computing.
Okay.
So my question to you is like with AI and machine learning advancement, and there's a lot of need for compute power. So what do you think is going to be the market for the GPU cloud, which is high performance compute? So
I think that's the way I'm betting on it as much as you are betting on it. But I think
because we are specifically focusing on building a GPU cloud on our own. So I think.
So I think it's definitely heading in that direction. Now, the only challenge is people who use that level of cloud-based systems are either they need to have a B2C model where their business is B2C because they tend to have a lot of data, or they have to be a large enterprise. The mid-sized enterprises are not there yet, because if they're in the B2B space, they're smaller firms, their cloud needs would not need that kind of compute power. So by taking that path, your market focus should be generally around B2C, who generally, because the consumer space has a lot more data that it generates, or it should be a large enterprise, B2B enterprise, where they have so much data that you need that kind of compute power. Otherwise, you don't need a bulldozer to move a small stone. So
Okay.
But I think I'm excited to hear that. Yeah, that's something we're working on well. But these are the two trends we're seeing, that those kinds of needs are in these two segments as of now.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ram sir. Quickly moving on, we have another question from Tamir from Singapore. Tamir has to be unmuted.
Tamir, you've been unmuted. You can talk now.
Okay, thank you, sir. This is Tamal from Singapore. I work for Accenture as data architect since 2016. So for 4 years. So I understand that the AI and big data and what we have discussed so far in the healthcare industry and logistic and all. And I wanted to know what other industry can extend with this AI, and what will be the future?
What other industry? I mean, there are.
I mean, financial industry, banking, and IT.
Yeah, I mean, you're asking from a job career perspective, or use cases are endless. I think even Netflix uses AI. So I think even the movie business will eventually have some AI uses, my prediction. But if you're looking from a job perspective, it's endless. It can be IT, banks. Banks have started to use AI to predict customer behavior patterns so that they can run campaigns to target it at those segments. I think there are now consultations, financial advisors who are now using AI, where you can now have a personal financial advisor who's using AI to give you stock tips and other investment decisions. So I think there are several AI uses currently being put to use. That's my comment on that.
Thanks, sir. Quickly then moving on, Ravi Kiran from Netherlands has a question.
Okay, can we make this the last one, or maybe after that?
Yeah, just maybe just a couple of more, hopefully, if that's okay with you, sir. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Another call at 8. Okay, no problem. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we should. Yeah, Ravi. Kannan.
Yeah, Ravi, you're on.
Sorry.
Hi, sir. First of all, thanks for this session. And I'm like working in the data analytics, mostly with SAP from Netherlands. Yeah, agriculture, which is considered as the backbone of our nation, I think like we should have enough science and technology in the field of agriculture. I also understand that your friends had some challenges in collecting the data. And yeah, in agriculture, like the digital agriculture in Holland, it's actually driving the world with all its newer practices, which is completely digital. And yeah, it's kind of leading the world. And I wanted to understand, do you like see like a plan of how do we overcome the difficulties and challenges that we have in India?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Ravi. Now, from a business perspective, we are driven by profit, and we are driven by, but as far as our CSR initiative goes, we are driven by social costs. Challenge in trying to further the agricultural AI revolution in India is for us to balance the two, because AI skills come at a cost. These are not these are hard skills as we speak, and but we'd love to hear more from how because we've done some checking with Israel, has done some really great work on the agricultural space, and I didn't know Holland had that. That's great to know. It was a learning for me today. I think if we can get some interest from, I have enough friends with that agenda, and then maybe we could create some kind of a social support team that can. But in India, there are challenges. For example, you look at John Deere in the US, the large tractor company. They've used AI immensely. Now, the same thing you look at tractor companies here, even though they're very large firms, they're still grappling with getting, because the farmer, when he buys the tractor, he doesn't necessarily want to send them any data after that. So there's the point of touch, and unless they have a repair of the tractor, they don't come back to the service center, and they don't get enough data. So there are challenges in the mindset as well at this, because just now the mobile penetration itself is still increasing, and thanks to Geo, hopefully there will be further increase in that. But I think we should take baby steps. I don't think we can make giant leaps there at the moment, but I think there are challenges, because I have no friends of mine who went in with a passion and they ran into roadblocks, genuine roadblocks, not by anybody, any governmental roadblock, but just basic challenges in getting data, and the farmer community here is just the adoption of tech is still low. Yeah, but
yeah, thank you, sir.
We're happy to take that as a social cause some point, not today, but maybe someday down the road. Thanks, Ravi.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Possibly, I just thought about one question for myself, and I think Lawrence from Singapore kind of touched on it earlier on. Specific to India, we're looking at the personal data protection bill, which is going to come into force, and we are seeing things about privacy becoming more stringent across the world, across borders, and also where we are now seeing a position taken by the Indian government, where they are stipulating even non-personal data to be secured within the borders. So in these kind of parameters and boundaries, what are the kind of opportunities you see, and what are the kind of threats you see, from an Indian software perspective?
From Indian's perspective, I mean, our focus market is not predominantly India, so about 10% of our business is from here. So we don't deal with as much of customers, but obviously from all the big tech companies are not obviously greatly happy about some of these regimes that are taken. But there's been a whole host of companies that have now got into the whole data security as a company. Our own spend on data security systems, policies, certifications have mushroomed in the last 3 years. We have never had to So we now have to sign even with our clients, strong data protection, agreements and stuff. So I think there's a whole bunch of consulting that has started and mushroomed, where there are companies helping companies in advising them, because people are unsure. What are the policy around this? There's so much uncertainty, and they don't want to be caught on the wrong foot, be it a consumer-focused company or a B2B company. So there's been a huge explosion in the consulting space, not only the McKinseys, the Deloittes, but there's a lot of mid-sized. But from our perspective, we're not as worried or as focused in this market. So for us, we just, from our own internal systems, we are now forced to put in place a lot of systems and processes to ensure, especially now with all this work from home and stuff, there's even more guidelines.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Kanan, okay.
Okay. Yeah. No, thank you very much, Ram, for patiently answering the questions. I would love to ask questions too, but I can understand we are out of time. Vimal wants to propose the word of thanks to you, so I hand over to Vimal.
Thanks, Kanan. And you and I can anyway chat anytime, and you can ask me the question.
Thanks, Kanan. Sukumar, many thanks for your inputs, for your valid times, and your knowledgeable sharing with the team around. Actually, all good wishes over among the team are working towards the Tamil Nadu growth on their areas mainly, along with MNM party and with the Namawar. Let's make a change and make a future Tamil Nadu.
Thank you all for having me, and wish you all, wherever you are, in a great movement that you started. Wish you all the best, and enjoyed spending my time today. Some very good questions and thought-provoking questions, and really enjoyed the session. Thank you all for your patient time.
Excellent. Thank you, Ram. Thank you all for joining.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.